Good morning and Happy New Year. I recently received a letter from a wife whose husband has Alzheimer's. I want to introduce you to two very special people, Julia and George. They've been married about 10 years. Julia was married for the first time at age 65 to George, who was about 5 years older and had an adult daughter from a previous marriage. Looking back, reminiscing, Julia described their marriage as a whirlwind of adventure. Julia was a retired agricultural engineer, and George owned and managed a large ranch, and they traveled extensively together. About 6 years into their marriage, Julia started to notice some subtle changes with George. And as she described the last years and last months of George's life, she was emotional. George started to have problems making decisions about the everyday operational aspects of the ranch. And Julia tried to pick up in the deficits that George was having, but as time went on, they became greater. In a year or so, he was no longer able to drive the car. And then after a while, she couldn't leave him alone. And safety was becoming a real concern for this family. Alzheimer's and dementia is one of the diagnoses that are difficult for someone to live out the duration of the disease and stay at home and stay safe and stay well cared for. In fact, did you know that 63% of family caregivers pass away before the person living with Alzheimer's or dementia does? That number is astounding and speaks to the stress, both emotionally and physically, that comes with caring for a family member with this disease. But thank goodness today, there are many options out there that support both the person living with Alzheimer's or dementia and the caregivers themselves. I first became acquainted with Julia and George when the hospital case manager suggested that they give me a call. George had been living in a memory care facility and made an aggressive move towards a staff member, and they sent him out by ambulance to the hospital. And the memory care community refused to take him back. The memory care. So now Julia was faced again with more caregiver stress to find something for George. You know, there are many options out there when you're looking for care, especially for somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia, but it takes a little work to find the right one. First of all, you want to look for a community that can do the care and hopefully let your loved one stay through the end of life, and that it's affordable. If it's not affordable, it's really not an option, is it? And then the location. It needs to be in a location that is acceptable for anyone advocating for the person with Alzheimer's or dementia so they can visit easily. If you've never done this search before, how do you know if they can do the care? And then how do you know if it's affordable? Well, Julia moved George to the memory care facility, hoping that he could live there throughout the duration of his disease. But as you know, there was the incident, and he was sent out. This was the wrong memory care for George. This memory care was not equipped to handle somebody with dementia that when they become frustrated or confused, they may appear aggressive or mean, and so they just sent him out. It was the wrong place. With Alzheimer's and dementia, most of you know that the short-term memory is a hallmark. The short-term memory loss is a hallmark of the disease. Excuse me. That the brain is not able to make the new neural pathways to create new memories. And so moving from home to an assisted living or memory care is huge for somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's. So this is what I know about George's journey. In February 10th of 2021, just last year, Julia moved George to the memory care community. It was new people, new surroundings, and he did pretty well. And then about 4 or 5 months later, he made that threatening move towards a staff member and was sent out by ambulance to the hospital, not able to return. So when George went into the ambulance, new surroundings, new people. From the ambulance, he went into the ER, new surroundings, new people. From the ER, they admitted him to a hospital room, more new people, new surroundings. It's too much. Change after change after change is not good for somebody with this disease. And now, Julia is looking at finding another community for George, which, what does that mean? New surroundings, new people. In my discussion with the case manager and Julia, I found out a lot about George, how he was before the disease creeped into their lives, what his care needs were, and a location that would be convenient for Julia to visit. And I found a place where George could live the rest of his life. You know, I only wish I would have met Julia earlier on when she was doing her search to avoid some of the heartache of all this change for both her and George. Poor Julia, poor George. You know, and no fault of Julia's. She didn't know what she didn't know. So I found a micro-assisted living that was owned and operated by a nurse named Wand. And guess what? Wand's assisted living is on a ranch, just like George was used to. I received a letter earlier this month from Julia that I'd like to share with you. Dear Barbara, we first talked on June 29th, 2021 about my husband George. On June 30th, you put me in touch with Juan. On July 1st, we moved George to Juan's. George was so well cared for and loved it there. He was gradually losing many skills, and then his dementia progressed rapidly in late November and into December. He died on December 27th and is at peace, and that is good. How much I miss him. The visitation and rosary are tomorrow, and then the mass and burial will be next week, and I'll be relieved when the formal parts of saying goodbye are over. I told Juan I wanted to thank you for responding so quickly when I needed to find a home away from home for him. I hope you're doing well. Best wishes in the new year, Julia. You know, I don't get a lot of letters of thanks in my job of what I do, but I was so appreciative and touched by the letter that Julia sent to me. If you or anyone you know is caring for somebody with a chronic disease, whether it be Alzheimer's, dementia, or something else, message me. This is what I do. And together, we can talk about how to support you in your journey of caregiving. Aging, it's difficult enough. Finding care doesn't have to be.